Hey everyone, Samia Khan here with your FOX10 News Now update. Hope you're having a wonderful, what day of the week is it? Monday afternoon. I know we've been streaming pretty much all day, so I hope you took advantage of your break, got some food, went to the bathroom, all that stuff, because we have a great show ahead, and you're not going to want to go anywhere. We're going to start things off with a little bit of politics. You know, the big news on Friday was that John Boehner announced he was going to resign, leaving the question, who is going to take his place? Well, one individual who wants to be the next Speaker of the House is Kevin McCarthy, and he held a press conference earlier today, so we're going to go ahead and pull that up right now and watch it.
And Eric Edelman. Today is something of a milestone for the John Hay Initiative because we are releasing our first book, Choosing to Lead, American Foreign Policy for a Disordered World. The book presents a comprehensive governing agenda on foreign policy and national security, and it's written for the next President of the United States. The book is available for free download at choosingtolead.net. We are honored to launch our new book with the House Majority Leader, Kevin McCarthy. And rather than recite the line by line of his extensive biography and accomplishments, I'd like to touch on two things that strike me about Leader McCarthy's career. First, at every stage of his career, his peers have chosen him as a leader. He was elected national chairman of Young Republicans in 1999. As a freshman in the California Assembly, he was elected unanimously as Republican leader, a first in Assembly history for a freshman member. And then he was elected to the House in 2006, and in a relatively short period of time was elected as House Majority Leader. And yet, one senses this is all prologue, and we've only begun to see his leadership. The second thing I'd like to emphasize about Leader McCarthy is his work on foreign policy. He has done his homework on the issues that we face today. He has made the time to travel overseas, to meet with heads of government and foreign ministers. His eloquent remarks at the Bardo Museum in Tunisia 1 week after the terrorist attack there showed a clear understanding of international terrorism and its many dimensions. He also knows that current efforts are insufficient. As he has trenchantly observed, the war on terrorism isn't going to lead itself. It's also clear from talking with him that what guides his thinking on foreign policy questions is the lessons that he's learned from studying the lives of Churchill, Washington, Lincoln, and Reagan. And he will talk more about their influence in his remarks today. We invited Leader McCarthy to give an address on America's role in the world, and we are deeply grateful that he accepted our invitation. Please welcome the House Majority Leader, Kevin McCarthy.
Well, thank you all very much. Brian, congratulations on the book. Excited about being able to read it. And to all of you, I know some in the room are friends and some have been to my office. If you walk into my office, there are two American leaders in particular that I look to, and I have portraits, Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan. Abraham Lincoln is a big portrait in black and white behind my desk. And across the hallway is Ronald Reagan, all in color and smiling. I sit there many days and I wonder, what advice would these two leaders give us today? You know what Lincoln would tell us? Believe in the exceptionalism of this country. That we're different than any other country before us. The reason why I believe Lincoln would say this is the Gettysburg Address. You all know the first lines, 77 years, right? But have you ever listened to the others? Our forefathers brought forth a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated the proposition that all men are created equal. He goes on to say, but if we fail, government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from earth. He did not say if we failed, England or France would pick up the torch, because they were not conceived in liberty and dedicated that all men are equal. You know when this hit home the strongest? A few years back, I'm in the rotunda, Shimon Peres, the president of Israel at the time, 92 years old, is there to receive a medal. He looks out at us and says, "You live on the greatest nation that's ever been on the face of the earth." Not the greatest nation of our time, but on the face of the earth. He looks to us and he says, "But do you know what your greatness comes from? It's not what you take, it's what you give. That America will give the ultimate sacrifice of life so another country could have freedom. And with that freedom becomes human rights and a stronger economy." That's who we are. The second bit of advice, I believe Lincoln would tell us, don't sit and just blame others for your problems. Accept where you are, but find a solution. You know, Lincoln was elected November 1860, sworn in March 1861. In those few months, 7 states left the Union, and never once did he blame Buchanan. A little different than our White House today, right? The advice Reagan would tell us, and I think this would be direct advice to the current president, peace without freedom is meaningless. History has proven when those strive just to have peace, like Chamberlain, never achieved freedom. The best example is Reagan late in his second term, where he's in Iceland with Gorbachev. He sits down, pretty much gets almost everything he asked for. But Gorbachev asked for that one last item, to end the research of SDI. Reagan said no, but he offered him something more. "I'll share." Gorbachev said no. Reagan got up and walked away from the table. Had Reagan not left, would the Berlin Wall have collapsed? Would the Soviet Union have collapsed? Peace without freedom is meaningless. Little side note. Do you realize what our current President Barack Obama has with the president before Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter? Those two presidents both won the Nobel Peace Prize. Reagan did not, but who brought people more freedom? The fourth bit of advice would come from Reagan. He would tell us, speak the truth about our enemies and ourselves. We can't be afraid to call the enemy what it is, radical Islamic terrorism. But we also can't be afraid to say the truth about America. We are exceptional, and we are the force for good in the world. As Reagan said at the Royal Institute of National Affairs in London, when free people cease telling the truth about and to their adversaries, they cease telling the truth to themselves. In matters of state, unless the truth be spoken, it ceases to exist. And the last bit of advice Lincoln would tell us, don't put off tough decisions for future generations. Lincoln had a very tough decision. But the debate of slavery didn't start in 1850. It started with the creation of our country. But our forefathers thought it was too divisive, so they put it to the side. In essence, it had to be hundreds of thousands of their grandchildren to make that decision. We don't have the same as difficult decision, but this White House is managing the decline and putting us in tough decisions for the future. Do you remember not so long ago when America stood with its allies and against its enemies? Or when America's strength led to peace and prosperity, not just here, but around the world? When America was seen as the world's shining light of freedom, liberty, and justice. That's the America I grew up in. That's the America I want for my children and their children. But before I even became majority leader, I had a passion for world affairs. Because I believe that anyone who wants to lead in Washington must commit to America's leadership among the community of nations and embrace America's role and responsibilities in preserving safety and security, peace and prosperity, not just within our borders, but beyond. In the past few years alone, I have visited Poland, Hungary, Estonia, Russia, and Georgia. I have met with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, visited in the allies in the Arab Gulf, traveled to Tunisia and Iraq, met with President Poroshenko in Ukraine, and visited our allies in Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. But understanding the world, and more importantly, the wisdom to act when needed, is not measured in frequent flyer miles or endless meetings. Effective foreign policy is not about effort. It's measured by success. And success in foreign policy, just like domestic policy, must be governed by sound, unshakable principles. Because without a clearly stated framework for action, our enemies will be emboldened by our uncertainty and our allies paralyzed by our indecision. So here is the first and most important principle of American foreign policy. The world is a safer place when America leads. In 2008, you remember candidate Obama crisscrossing Europe, speaking before millions. He traveled to places like Berlin to speak to fawning crowds with the goal of improving our reputation. But what he has yet to learn in office is that respect is not bestowed upon those who ask for it, but granted only to those who earn it. And when it comes to dictators, tyrants, and terrorists, strength and the threat of force is the only language they understand. We have lost the respect of our allies and adversaries alike. We have isolated Israel while emboldening places like Iran. We let North Korea threaten South Korea. Russia encroach on Ukraine, and now China asserting influence around the world. Wherever you look, the world is less safe and less secure because America is less engaged. The America we need and deserve is strong, respected, appreciated, and feared. A country where the noble cause of freedom inspires millions of people across the world to stand up, speak out, and fight tyranny and justice in the pursuit of individual liberty and human rights. That leads to the second principle that must govern American foreign policy. Strength and resolve brings peace and security. The absence of leadership over the past 6 years has had horrific consequences all across the globe, and it's only getting worse. Our enemies, be they rogue nations or terrorist groups, see us talk about red lines not to be crossed. They defiantly challenge us and cross them. Sadly, all too often, America makes bold claims followed by weak response or no response at all. As a result, our enemies get stronger and America gets weaker. Today, our Army is at its lowest number since 1940. Our troop readiness is severely compromised. Our active soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines are being neglected after they bravely fought in 2 wars. And those who return home are being disrespected by the VA that can't keep the simple promise to all of our heroes to the need when they need it most. But there is no weakness in these men and women. They're heroes who fought to the death in Ramadi, who bombed the caves of Tora Bora, who secured a fragile peace in Iraq with the precious sacrifice of their blood. No, the weakness lies not with our enlisted men or women or the officers leading them. The weakness lies with the commander-in-chief. The Reagan Doctrine worked because the Soviets knew there was not 1 inch of soil we could concede for the spread of communism. There was not $1 we wouldn't spend to spread freedom. Peace comes through strength, not through retreat. Take Europe and our response to Russia. The aggression Russia has shown, rather than leading in a region of the world that has long symbolized America's ability to stabilize and transform, the U.S. has withdrawn in both spirit and presence. The U.S. military presence have dropped from 300,000 to around 60,000. We rolled out the red carpet for Putin's regional ambitions. Russia's military modernization and its reliance on hybrid warfare are a direct threat to NATO and the solidarity of our alliance. Yet efforts to contain and roll back Russia's aggressions have failed. This administration has seesawed from an ill-advised courtship of Putin's Russia to scrambling to respond to Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea and a ground war in eastern Ukraine that continues today that's virtually unacknowledged by this White House. The challenge within Ukraine is the greatest threat to European security since the World War II. Now, my answer? Stop letting Putin set the agenda. Stop turning a blind eye to Russian aggression. It's time for America to step up, not back down. And that starts with providing Ukrainian fighting forces with lethal aid. We signed the Budapest Memoranda in 1994, in which Ukraine agreed to relinquish their nuclear weapons inherited by the Soviet Union in exchange for the US, the UK, and Russia to preserve, respect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. It's bad enough that Russia has violated the memoranda. We should live up to it. The Obama administration has argued that providing defense weapons will only encourage additional Russian aggression. I disagree. It is weakness that fuels Russian aggression, not Western actions. The president's response to Putin's aggression should not be to sit down and talk, but to consider serious sanctions that target him personally. The oligarchs who sustain his reign and their cronies that help them avoid sanctions. We should be making it more difficult for the major Russian energy company, Gazprom, to do business. You know, Gazprom is an extension of the Russian military arsenal. It fuels Putin's belligerent ambition to blackmail our allies. Threats to cut off gas to Ukraine and others across Europe should not be mistaken for anything else but an act of hostility. It's time to make it much tougher for them to do their dirty business. We must use American energy to help our allies. It defies belief that the president would allow the ban on Iranian oil exports to be lifted and also stand by a Russia blackmails an entire continent, all the while keeping the place of the ban on America. If Russia wants to use energy as a weapon against our friends and allies, let us use our energy resources to set them free. Let's sell American oil and gas wherever we find an ally in need. Let's do what I would consider the third principle for foreign policy. Start standing with our friends and start challenging our adversaries. We must also stand by the side of those who are on our side. We should support those who support freedom and stability and oppose those who would enslave their own people. We can inspire billions of people across the globe that one day, by standing with America, they too can live in free prosperity. Now, no two countries on earth exemplify this principle more than our relationships with Israel and Iran. You know, I recently joined 36 congressional members on a trip to Israel, our strongest, closest ally in the region. There we listened to the people from every political perspective, from decision makers to ordinary citizens. In all these conversations, you know, we were left with one lasting impression. The people who know Iran best trust them the least. Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. They know a nuclear Iran is a recipe for world chaos. Many more have been coerced into public statements of lukewarm support. But they know full well the dangerous consequences of a nuclear-armed Iran. And they told us behind closed doors that the Iranian deal is the worst decision America can make. This is the same country that has funded terrorists for generations. The same country that has repeatedly said America the great Satan. The same country that deceived the world in its nuclear infrastructure for more than a decade. You know, Iran's neighbors know what President Obama once said, that no deal is better than a bad deal, and that a better approach was even tougher sanctions, not to eliminate them. For these reasons and more, I stand with the majority of the American people on a nuclear deal with Iran. Why? Because this agreement fails to achieve what we all want: safety, security, and stability in the Middle East and across the world. Instead, a nuclear-armed Iran will bring more terror and more war and more destruction. The people of the Middle East deserve better, and so do the American people. The evidence of Iranian intentions is overwhelming. From the funding of Hezbollah to the use of the Quds force in actively supporting the Shia Houthis forces after the staging the coup against the Yemen president. On almost a weekly basis, we learn of planned attacks by Iranian-backed terror cells operating in neighboring countries. It is unconscionable that the president's nuclear deal with Iran does nothing to restrain Iranian-backed terror. To the contrary, it enhances it. You know, Iran spends about $16 billion per year. Now, that's a conservative estimate backing its proxies. What do we think Iran will do with $150 billion? Put that in perspective. That's as large or larger than the recent bailout of Greece. Iran increased funding for terrorism is the greatest fear I hear from our allies in the region, as a direct result of the humiliating concessions by President Obama and Secretary Kerry. Now, looking ahead, the best path forward to safety, security, and stability in the Middle East and around the world is to once again to take control of our destiny. The global sanctions that kept Iran at bay and brought him to the table was working. So let's do what works. Because the president chose to submit this agreement not as a treaty, the next president is not bound by it. The next president can instead take a whole new approach, one based on a position of strength, not of concessions. Sanction relief should only be granted when nations abandon a coordinated campaign of violence and terrorism. You don't induce your enemies into good behavior. You make it painful to continue the bad behavior. You know, Iran is not the only challenge we face in the Middle East. Iraq is a country where Americans have fought and died to bring stability and protect its security. I would venture to guess that all 15 candidates for president have been asked that same question. Would you have gone to war if you knew what you knew now? But you know what question I have not heard the Democrats asked? If you knew our total unconditional withdrawal from Iraq would lead to the creation and expansion of ISIS, to the mass execution of moderate Muslims, to the slaughter of Coptic Christians, to Syrian children washing ashore as they fled the butcher, Assad, would you still support the president's complete withdrawal from Iraq? Would you still defend drawing red lines that get crossed without consequences? Would you support a policy that has given ISIS a caliphate about the size of the UK? Would you give up cities like Ramadi, where Marines gave the last measure of devotion so the president could keep a campaign promise? I look forward to that question being asked. We need an entirely new policy in Iraq and Syria. The Iraqi army is no longer up to the task, and the coalition air war against ISIS, both in Iraq and Syria, have failed to reverse ISIS's gains. The U.S. needs to lead again and re-engage. Our goal in Iraq should be defeat ISIS, marginalize Iranian influence and Iranian militias, and help to foster a system of political inclusiveness rather than sectarian division. The U.S. and our allies should also consider putting limited number of U.S. Special Forces personnel on the ground and outside the wire to help call in truly effective airstrikes and provide more effective support to the Iraqi army, the Sunni, and the Kurdish units directly engaged in the fight. Many combat missions flown over Iraq come back without ever dropping a bomb. This is because we had limited intelligence. We have tied the hands of our commanders and micromanaged from the White House. When we ask our brave men and women to risk their lives every day, we must fight to win and empower them to fight and win. In addition to real hard power, we could do more on the soft power as well. Unlike during the surge in Iraq, when Petraeus and Crocker had an effective politically strategy to match the military strategy. No such effort exists today. Working with Iraqi leaders on an inclusive, non-sectarian governance plan is essential to move forward. Now, in nearby Syria, the situation is even worse than bleak. The decision to back down to Assad caused insurmountable harm to America's credibility. But it didn't end there. This administration engaged with Russia, one of Assad's top supporters, to broker an agreement to the destruction of Assad's chemical weapons. Predictably, Assad continues to use chemical weapons against his own people to the very day. And Russia? Well, they're rapidly increasing support for Assad. We have watched tanks, personnel, and fighter jets. When Obama backed down, Russia and Iran doubled down. The growing nexus in Syria among Russia, Iran, and Assad has all but ensured the failure of this administration's plan to coax Assad from power. Already the conflict has created the worst refugees crisis since World War II. Roughly half of Syria's population has been displaced. Over 4 million who have fled to Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey, and Europe. How heartbreaking was it all when we watched a young Ela Kurdi, 3-year-old, face down on the beaches of Turkey. It brought reality home. The situation only appears to be getting worse. Finally, I think we should work with our allies to establish a no-fly zone over northern Syria. This safe zone would create a stem of flow of refugees and allow sanctuary for the rebooted Syrian rebels to take on ISIS and al-Qaeda affiliate groups and prevent Assad's future attacks on his own people. Now, whether it is in the form of ISIS or al-Qaeda or other radical Islamic movements, one thing is clear. Politically correct speech will not defeat the enemy. We must engage this war of radical Islam if our life depended on it, because it does. They want to kill Western values by bringing bloodshed to Western cities. We have watched London, Paris, New York, and Washington. They have all seen the face of terror. Now let me be clear. This is not the view of the great majority of Muslims here and abroad. American Muslims make this country better. And the same is true of the millions of Muslims across the globe. They reject the extremism as much as we do. But a small percentage of a well-funded Islamic fanatics hate those moderate Muslims as much as they hate Christians and Jews. And they will stop at nothing to rid the world of all three. You know, history repeats itself. And if I look in history of where we are, it seems a lot like 1979. There's a lot of things falling in familiar categories. The Soviets invading Afghanistan, and today Russia in Crimea and Ukraine. The Islamic fanatics overtake an embassy of ours in Iran, holding us hostage. and then there are 4 hostages there today. Not to count for the numbers who are murdered by ISIS around the world. You know the last time a U.S. ambassador was killed on foreign soil? It's a direct reflection of the respect and the fear that other countries have of us. In 1979 in Afghanistan, and Stevens and the 3 brave Americans in Libya. Then and now, the chaos on conflict were the direct result of a weak America leadership. But you know what? It only took 10 years to go from a world in chaos to the freeing of our hostages, to the trembling and the tumbling of the Berlin Wall, to the liberating of the Eastern Bloc, to 2 years later, to the communist Soviet Union's collapse. And it all happened because America's leadership and America resolve. So guided by 3 fundamental principles that must see us forward. The world is safer when America leads. That strength and resolve are the best recipe for peace and security. And that America stands with its allies and challenges its adversaries. There is no substitute for American leadership, and there is no time like the present to start. The fate of the world is in our hands. So let us do what must be done, so that someday we can tell our children that we protected freedom when it was challenged the most, that we stood up to tyrants and terrorists, that we stood with those who were oppressed and freedom-loving, that we became the America that the world has counted on so many times once again. You and your children deserve that America. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Leader McCarthy, for being with us today and for delivering a very thoughtful address on America's role in the world. Choosing to lead has been the work of many hands. And before we turn to our panels, I would like to highlight our gratitude to the Bradley Foundation for making this book possible. We had over 30 authors for the book, most of whom are here today. We have more authors than time to showcase them all, but we wanted to at least do 2 panels and have a wide-ranging discussion. So our good friend Pete Wehner has agreed to moderate both panels, and I would like to invite him and the first panel to the stage. Bios for each of our panelists can be found on our website, but let me quickly introduce them and their area of expertise, and we can get right to it.
All right, guys. So you just heard from Kevin
have our panelists
McCarthy.
come up?
He made his big announcement today that he wants to take over for
Eric
John
Edelman will
Boehner.
be,
I'm going to go ahead and play
talking
this
about
story from
defense.
Doug Luzader. We played
Mike
it this
Singh
morning, but
on
in case you
Iran.
missed it the first time
Paula
around,
Dobriansky
this story
on
is from
Russia,
Fox National,
and
kind of
Dan
giving an
Fisk on
overview
Western Hemisphere.
of the potential replacement of John Boehner.
Well, in the near term, this would seem to reduce the likelihood of a government shutdown this week, but this also has longer-term implications for Congress and for the GOP. Just days after an apparently relieved but emotional John Boehner stunned Washington with news that he will turn over his speaker's gavel at the end of next month, he unloaded on a group of fellow Republicans who have long questioned his leadership.
Absolutely, they're unrealistic. But the Bible says, beware of false prophets.
So what's next for Boehner? Probably relying on Democratic votes this week to pass a spending bill that will prevent a government shutdown, even though many Republicans are insisting that controversial funding for Planned Parenthood be stripped out. And conservatives fear that other compromises will follow before Boehner leaves, which is why they wanted him out in the first place.
We told people, give us the Senate and things would be different. We told them back in 2010, give us the House, things would be different. And things are not that different.
But what both wings of the party seem to agree on, the odds-on favorite at this point to replace Boehner is House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California. It would be a very fast rise for someone who has been in Congress for less than 9 years.
I don't think there's much doubt Kevin will be the next Speaker of the House, and he should be. Frankly, he's had a brilliant career, is well positioned.
I think it's fair to say that Kevin has the inside track for the position, being our leader and so forth. I think the important question is, will things change? Will they change for the better, or we simply replace Mr. Boehner with somebody else who will do the same thing?
Well, that is the most critical question for House conservatives. At this point, though, we don't know who else is going to put themselves forward for Speaker. It could be a real battle. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
Hi, Linda Williams.
Hi, Samia Khan.
So we're going to move on from the world of politics and talk about the story that every single person was talking about this morning. We streamed the full NASA broadcast live this morning. We had hundreds and hundreds of people tune in.
Because it's so much fun to imagine what could get NASA excited, because they're so, they're all governmental. So anytime they say, big deal, we get excited. We're like, this must be big.
Right.
This must be life. They must have found a Martian.
They had their own hashtag Mars announcement.
Yeah, and then Martian, the movie, when does that open? Friday?
Let's
forget who's in it.
Google.
The Martian. That's intriguing. That movie looks good to me. I'm going to go see it. There he is. Matt Damon.
Yeah, I guess it opens this Friday.
I'm like, oh my
But
gosh.
you can watch it on Thursday night in some cities. Like even here locally, their first show times are at 8 o'clock, I think.
All right. I'm excited about that.
Do you think
it
they
coincides
waited?
with this.
Do you think they waited for the movie?
No, but that's what I thought. I thought NASA wouldn't be playing into this whole Hollywood thing, and the answer is no.
Or
that's
would
not
they?
How they roll. Hey,
never know.
Then you know what? It's not your grandpa's NASA. Maybe it's it's like some new NASA. But from what I've seen, no.
Right, and it's not like the movie decided to coincide with this
and
revelation.
Anytime, they're scientists, so when they use superlatives like big announcement, huge announcement, surprise announcement, you're like, these scientists, they always try to, manage
very
expectations.
monotone.
Oh my gosh, they're so gray. Is a nice way to put it.
Speaking of gray, that's apparently the name of aliens.
Really?
I learned this from Jeff today. They're called the Grays, Grays.
Oh my
and then
gosh,
they look,
I didn't know that.
That's so crazy.
And then we had a super moon last night. There's just a lot of weird energy out there,
Yeah.
excitement.
Look,
we're
there they
excitable.
are.
Those are the Grays?
Yeah.
Oh man, see, you're freaking me out.
I'm not going to show the viewers. I already freaked them out earlier in the
Okay.
morning edition, and I
Stop
showed them
freaking out the
freaky
viewers.
aliens. But yeah, you were on the fun story today.
So
It's
I got to go.
No sad news.
Yes, no. I went to ASU, my alma mater, and I went and I spoke to an associate professor there who works at the, I call it the space lab, but there's some big long
I'm sorry
name
about your
for it.
loss.
Why would you even bring that up? Now I have to leave. No.
It's only because I went to USC.
I know.
There's only...
Don't touch me. I'm kidding. No, it's fine. It's really, but in the morning meeting when we're talking about this, I'm like, I'm not going to ASU. I don't want to go back there. And they said, oh, come on, why? Because they lost? I said, no, because it's how they lost. But you know what? We had, we are so going off track. I always wonder why my time goes so fast up here. It's because you and I are like,
Well,
beep, 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 beep.
well, in my defense, though, that's another big topic from the weekend, ASU's loss.
Well, it's not just ASU. California came to town in a big way. U of A was playing UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
ASU had USC. The Arizona Diamondbacks were playing the
Padres.
Padres. And San Francisco, California,
Yeah.
was playing the Cardinals.
Which the Cardinals did very well.
What, that was one out of 4 teams that
I think the
won.
Padres
Everybody
won.
else lost. No, well, Saturday, the D-backs lost to the Padres.
Oh,
so
I see.
Yeah, I was feeling really wimpy on the way home Saturday
But
night. I'm like,
of all
oh my
of
gosh.
all of those matchups, which one was the most important?
To me,
I
the Cardinals.
understand.
To me, the Cardinals.
Right, and I think to everyone the Cardinals. Though.
Yes, but I'm an ASU girl. My kids are at U of A, so I didn't mind their loss that much.
I was really upset about the U of A loss. Really
It didn't
upset
bug me,
because
USC and UCLA are
they're rivals, and my boyfriend went to U of A, so I had double the reason to care about U of A
Wow.
and hate UCLA.
Oh, and it didn't work out.
You can't win everything, but what you can win is a NASA announcement.
20 minutes later. Okay, so NASA has confirmed that liquid water flows on Mars. And what I said to this professor, Ruff, I said, it seems once a year at least, NASA says, we found water on Mars. And everyone's like, woo woo. I said, I know I've heard this before. The difference is this time it is present water. It's there now. What they found before is evidence of ancient water or ice crystals. This is flowing, active water.
I gotta pull up
on
this
Mars.
picture.
Yeah, big hairy deal. And he said that's what the difference is this time. And in terms of supporting life, I mean, the possibilities are endless. So you're seeing this picture. And I said, describe what water on Mars looks like. Because I look at this picture and I'm like, I don't see it.
I don't see the water.
Well, what you're looking at, I said, is it flowing? Is it as a stream? And he said, what you're looking at is wet dirt. So you see all those lines that are coming down. It all kind of looks like lava
here?
coming off a volcano.
These lines.
All of those lines.
That's water.
That is wet dirt. That means that water has dribbled down underneath the dirt and caused these lines of darkness that you see here in these pictures.
I see.
And I guess what they figured out is that it's not just water like you could go up and drink. It's very salty water. There you see it again. And there's all kinds of technical things that I would love to tell you, but I just can't remember them. I'm not a scientist.
But you did do an interview.
I did an interview with the scientist, and I made him explain it to me in a way that I could understand. I wasn't afraid to say, whoa. You know, give me an analogy. Is it
Right.
like, we're not talking Oak Creek. Is it like a trickle? Is it like something down the side of a wet, sweating glass? What is it? And he came up with great analogies of what water on Mars looks like. And that's why I could even say that what you're looking at is it's just wet dirt. You're like, wet dirt, big deal. But you know what? It is a big deal when you look at the possibilities of it.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's my story at 5. He is an associate professor, and all they do in this particular lab is look at, I mean, everywhere I went, there was Mars.
Wow.
Yeah.
And also one of the things to bring up, one of the key researchers was from U of A, right?
Exactly. He, in terms of the camera that was on the satellite, that was on orbiter, that captured, see, there's a lot of different
Is he
things.
going to explain that? The U of A
He
connection?
might mention the U of A connection. I wasn't, he mentioned it. He
Yeah.
said, this is U of A's baby. But, obviously they're busy there today.
Yeah.
So we have pictures from NASA, and we have a national aspect. But I'll look up the U of A connection.
All right.
And I'll give it to you. I'm going to go research it and give it to
And
you.
I'm gonna play this
And then
interview.
on the other side of the interview, you can explain, because I don't want anyone to think that it had
Sounds
anything to
good.
do with,
And then-
me being a devil. Sorry.
And then also,
Yes.
right after that, we're going to be going live to the school where Patrick Peterson, an Arizona Cardinal,
The big
is-
selfie thing?
He's right there. No, he's at a school, his foundation.
Oh,
Patrick's
great.
Corner. We're going to watch that live. I know he's going to speak with the media, so that's
Very
exciting.
nice.
So
Oh,
we're going to
that's
go there right
great.
after. So
Yeah.
football fans, stay tuned. Even if you're not a football
Cardinals
fan.
are bigger than Mars to me.
Yes, but to the rest of the world.
Because I knew water was on Mars. I mean, when we were speculating last night, what is it? And everyone was speculating, it's water. So, but I've heard so many things. I already saw a tweet today that says Mars has more water than California.
That was good.
That was
good.
a good one. Admit it. Okay.
All
Listen
right.
to him. I'll find out the U of A connection.
Sounds
I just
good.
don't remember it.
They're at ASU.
Okay.
Right?
You've been studying Mars for,
Decades,
okay.
actually.
Yes. So this is a big deal. They said it's a big deal. Tell me why it's a big deal.
So once again, NASA scientists have recognized water on the surface of Mars in some form. And what's exciting is that this is water in today's environment. Most of the discoveries about water on Mars are water in Mars' ancient history. So this is water in Mars' current, environment, which is a big deal. And so these slope features that are the source of this discovery, they were actually discovered back in 2011 with a camera from the University of Arizona. And those pictures showed these slope features growing on slopes on Mars in the summer seasons. And it had been a mystery up until today, basically, or the recent discovery, that the slopes are forming because of salty water. All right, so Mars is, even in the summer months on Mars, it's so cold that water really would still freeze. So you need these salts, these briny fluids, to allow water to form and flow today in this environment.
So the discovery really proves essentially that these slope features are formed by briny, salty water.
And that opens up all kinds of possibilities in terms of, because people say, okay, big deal, there's recent water, blah, blah, but the potential for what that could mean in terms of
Right.
life-supporting environments, that kind of thing. Will you
Right.
expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so water in Mars environment today means that there is some kind of water cycle, that water isn't literally just bottled up or frozen in ice underneath the surface. It's coming to the surface today. It's a potential resource, but again, it's briny water. You're not just going to go up and drink from these flows, right? So it's very salty, but it really does show that even today on Mars, water is coming and going in a way that we didn't know before. So this is really clear evidence for a water cycle on Mars. Water is coming to the surface. With regards to life and this water, again, because it's so salty, it's not necessarily a great place for microbes. There are some salt-loving microbes that might tolerate this environment. But I think more than a relationship to life, it's really showing that there's water moving around on the surface, in the shallow subsurface of Mars today, and it may serve as a resource for future astronauts, for example. And it does maybe tell us something about an environment where microbes could grow in today's environment. So again, the idea of water in today's environment versus the past, and life being present today, this does give a boost to that idea that there could be life today on Mars.
Well, that's an interesting boost.
Yeah.
Let's see, how do I put this? Is there a way to tell from what rover sent back? Right? This is from the Mars rover camera.
No, this is all from orbiter.
It's from orbiter.
Satellites.
From
okay.
orbiter satellites.
Yeah. So all of this information, most of this is coming from orbital identification from these satellites, right, around Mars orbit, or in Mars orbit. And so they're taking pictures and they're using spectral data, these squiggly lines, to identify what minerals are present. So it used to just be pictures, but now we've got spectra from this CRISM instrument, and the spectra are telling us what salts are there.
Can you somehow envision and explain to me and give me an analogy of what water coming down that slope actually looks like? It's not Niagara Falls.
Right.
It's a trickle.
Yeah, it is a trickle.
It's
not even. It doesn't even look like a spring in the Grand Canyon. This would be very slow-moving, fluids, probably just under the dirt, and the dirt is getting wet in a way that makes the dirt darker. Everyone who's poured water on dirt knows that it gets a little darker when it gets wet. And so that's what these slope streaks look like, these slope features, is they look like damp soil, okay? So it isn't it isn't like a gush of water coming down these slopes.
Is there anything you wanted to stress that I didn't ask you?
That last point was good.
It was.
Yeah,
It was excellent.
that it's not, these aren't gushing springs coming out of the walls of the rocks there. It's just damp soil. So I think that's a key feature. But again, it's important because it's water today.
Water today.
Yep.
I love it. So do you think we've got it? What's important?
Yeah, I think you'd have.
We looked forward in terms of what could happen. We looked back in terms of what's new.
Yeah, that you can't, and it's not, you can't make a point that it's like this is evidence for life. It's not. It's evidence for water today, which is the big deal.
Take a couple of pictures of you.
Okay.
For some reason, I can't explain why, I'm so hivey. And I usually don't get hives, but for some reason my legs, as I'm standing here,
Can you,
started
you
itching.
can still look at her, but can you
Okay.
explain why is it important for water to be on Mars?
Because water on Mars is important because it's a resource, it's necessary for life. It's necessary for life to be there even if we don't go there. But when we do go there with humans, it's a resource for those humans. So having water on a planet is a requirement for life to be there, and it's a requirement for life that wants to go there and live. That work?
Perfect.
Me too, Sean?
Yes.
All right, guys, that is a wrap on Linda's interview. If you want to see more information, learn more about this new discovery, make sure to tune into Linda's story at 5 o'clock on fox10phoenix.com. That being said, while that was playing, I happened to go on my phone, happened to check Instagram, and I saw this with the caption, "Is there coffee on Mars yet?" And, you know, it's coffee art, but it's an alien. Look at this, Linda. It's alien coffee art.
So it's kind of like
The Grays.
If they've got water, then they can have coffee.
Yeah, that was the idea.
Pasta. Gotta get it up there. The pasta.
Look at that. I just thought it was so great. I'm really into latte art.
Apparently.
One time I went to a coffee shop in Los Angeles, and I was like, I don't care what drink it is, just can you make me something where you can draw a bear in the coffee? And I was really adamant. So, like, what do you want to order? I was like, I don't know, anything with a bear. I was going through a bear phase. Anyway, on that note, looks like the Patrick Peterson event hasn't kicked off quite yet. I'm going to go ahead and show you a live look at the school right now. Some details about this event. Basically, this is Frank Elementary School in Guadalupe. And this is the third Patrick's Corner reveal sponsored by National Bank of Arizona. Peterson will reveal the third Patrick's Corner of his Foundation for Success to the students at Frank Elementary School. Patrick's Corner will provide access to books and a fun environment to read with friends and family for at-risk students. Peterson will introduce Patrick's Corner at a press conference and ribbon cutting ceremony. That's what you're looking at right now. After the reveal, Peterson will visit with the students and their families. The Patrick Peterson Foundation for Success aims to install 8 Patrick's Corners in Title I schools and inner-city community centers throughout Arizona by the end of 2017. Wow, 8 by the end of 2017, to make more than 20,000 books available to over 5,000 children each year. Now, the mission of the Patrick Peterson Foundation for Success is to provide low-income and inner-city youth with opportunities and resources to reach their full potential. So this is happening at Frank Elementary School. The ribbon cutting was scheduled for 3:15. It looks like they are running a little behind, and it does appear that Patrick Peterson will be doing interviews with the media, so hopefully we'll be able to carry that here on News Now as well. I would like to also acknowledge some of the chatter in the chat room. I see Rachel saying, Patrick Peterson gets me a discount on my pizza. Well, you know what, Rachel? That's absolutely true. Papa John's here in Arizona has a Patrick Peterson special. I think you get a 2-topping large pizza for only $10. Normally that costs a lot more than $10. Plus, whenever the Cardinals win the very next day, 50% off Papa John's and free coffee at Dunkin' Donuts the day after a Cardinals win. So if the Cardinals win, you win, guys. It's win-win for everyone, literally. All right, guys, while we wait for the Patrick Peterson event to start, I want to give you an update on one major headline. It's a story we covered, honestly, since June. We were really involved in it. We're talking about the prisoner escape out of New York. You guys know who I'm talking about, Joyce Mitchell. She is the prison worker accused of helping 2 inmates escape from prison. There was a manhunt for 3 weeks. This is video of her this morning. She was going into court. She was being sentenced, and Joyce Mitchell herself sentenced today for helping 2 convicted murderers escape from that maximum security prison. We're going to hear from her now. Let's go ahead and play that sound for you. Give me 1 second while this
From that and Sweat's escape. If I could take it all back, I would. I can't begin to explain how sorry I am for all this. To the community, to my co-workers, to my family, to all the families of the officers that were involved in having to be taken away from their families in this search. While these 2 men were on the loose. I never intended for any of this to happen. As hard as it was to come forward, I knew I had to. I was raised to tell the truth. I know I didn't come out at first and be completely honest, but I did bring myself to the state police and try to help as much as I could. I'm afraid it didn't help though, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I am 51 years old, and this is by far the worst mistake I have ever made in my life. I live with regret every day and will for the rest of my life. Your Honor, I would wear an ankle bracelet and county jail for the rest of my life if I could just go home to my family. Thank you.
As a result, from your conviction for promoting prison contraband in the first degree, you are sentenced to an indeterminate period of incarceration of 2 1/3 years to 7 years. You are also fined the maximum fine of $5,000. As a result of your conviction for criminal facilitation in the 4th degree, I sentence you to a definite term of 1 year, concurrent to the just imposed sentence for promoting prison contraband in the 1st degree. And I fine you a fine of $1,000. I impose the mandatory court surcharge, crime victim fee, and DNA fees totaling $375.
All right, guys, so that was Joyce Mitchell in court. As you know, she agreed to be those 2 prisoners' getaway driver, but she backed out the day of the escape. Again, you've watched her apologize, wiping away her tears. She was sentenced to 2 1/3 to 7 years in prison. There's no definite term, but anywhere between 2 1/3 years to 7 years in prison. Basically, Mitchell cut a deal with prosecutors. She pled guilty to the charges relating to providing tools to Richard Mack and David Sweat. Again, those 2 broke out of the Clinton Correctional Facility in upstate New York back in early June. About 3 weeks later, the duo was found. One was shot and killed by a border agent. The other one was wounded and captured by a state trooper. Joyce Mitchell helped in their escape plans, and she was sentenced today. All right. In the meantime, I'm on Patrick Peterson watch. It looks like Patrick has not yet arrived to the elementary school, so I'm going to continue to monitor this, and as soon as things kick off, we will be taking you live there. In the meantime, I'm going to give you an update on another major story that we covered last week. I think it happened Friday, that really unfortunate, tragic crash up in Seattle involving the duck boat tour and the bus. Many people killed, lots more injured. I'm going to go ahead and play a couple stories for you out of Washington. This one is an overview in general of the crash, and then let's see if there's any other story related to this. Very sad story indeed, though.
A 20-year-old international college student has succumbed from injuries she suffered from last week's duck boat crash in Seattle. The woman, whose name has not been released, was one of more than 50 people injured when the amphibious tour vehicle and a bus collided. 4 others have also died. Officials from the National Transportation and Safety Board are looking into the cause of the mishap, and investigators have determined the duck boat did not have recommended repairs.
We found a failure in a component of the left front wheel.
According to the NTSB, Ride the Ducks International identified a problem area on the vehicle 2 years ago, but it's unclear if the company that owns the vehicle, Ride the Ducks of Seattle, was aware of the warning.
The housing around the axle where it necks down was a potential failure point.
The accident took place on the Aurora Bridge last Thursday. Highway safety and engineering teams are also taking part in the investigation.
The 3D scan of the bridge will provide additional information about the physical characteristics of the bridge, including curbing, rail height, and lane width.
Meantime, more than a dozen people remained hospitalized with various injuries. Katie Moody suffered a broken collarbone. Her father, cuts and bruises. Despite that, they say they are thankful to be alive.
We were fortunate, very fortunate, and I think I have to thank God for that.
Along with federal officials, state regulators have also opened an investigation into the crash. Ride the Ducks Seattle has voluntarily sidelined its vehicles for the time being. Kelly Wright, Fox News.
All right, now we're going to play another story. Teen and dad on the duck tour talk. Let's listen in.
One of the victims still in the hospital tonight is Katie Moody. She has a broken clavicle and can't move her neck at all. She's really shaken up and says that she feels lucky to be alive. So Katie and her dad Greg and her mom all visiting here from the Bay Area, and they were all thrown from the duck yesterday. They're visiting for her niece's birthday. Now, the Moody's wanted just to kill some time and decided to take a duck for a tour of the city. Yesterday, they're sitting on row 2, behind the driver on the outer side of the duck. So once on the Aurora Bridge, they hear this loud noise and see a huge bus coming directly toward them. Katie says the last thing she remembers is waking up on the ground.
I must have blacked out, or I had my eyes closed. I remember waking up on the freeway, and I saw people running towards us from their cars to check on us. And everyone was actually really awesome. Some lady helped me find my mom and made sure we were okay.
Katie's mom is also in the hospital tonight. Her clavicle is broken as well. We asked Katie if she felt the driver wasn't focused on the road, and she said she didn't feel that way at all. She thinks this was just a horrible accident. She doesn't blame the driver or anyone else, just that she's grateful for those first responders who she says she owes her life to tonight. Reporting in Seattle, Alexandra Lewis, Q13, Fox News.
All right, so that is the update with that. I want to acknowledge Tessa's comment saying the duck boat is so popular in Seattle, you have to make reservations ahead of time for a tour. I've tried dropping in for a ride with no luck. Interesting. Take a test. Rachel saying my brother had a broken clavicle before. It's a painful recovery. Poor people. It is very sad to go through those injuries, but I'm sure they're just grateful that they survived that crash, given that 5 other people did not survive. It looks like this event featuring Patrick Peterson is just about to kick off. Frank Elementary School. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up for you guys now. Again, some background information on this event in case you missed my description. The first time around, they are going to reveal the 3rd Patrick's Corner of Patrick Peterson's Foundation for Success. This will be revealed to students at Frank Elementary School. Now, what Patrick Corner does is it provides access to books and a fun environment to read with friends and family for at-risk students. So there's the corner. And apparently the goal is to have a total of 8 of these Patrick's Corners in inner city community centers and Title I schools throughout Arizona by the end of 2017. So it's very exciting. The goal is to make more than 20,000 books available to over 5,000 children annually. Again, we'll be hearing from Patrick Peterson of the Arizona Cardinals momentarily, so stay tuned. We have a lot more news now ahead.
Yeah, it's right there. Okay. Yeah. Even more exciting, isn't it? I get Yep. Cool. So, what do you think we should do? Do you think we should have that read or? I know. Oh yeah, absolutely. Hi. Come on in. Hi. Hi, Patrick. Welcome to Frank's School. We're so excited to have you. I'm Andrea Wald, the assistant principal here at Frank's School, and I'm so proud to say that I get to work with the best teachers and the brightest students in Arizona. Right now, we are standing in the third ever Patrick's Reading Corner. Yay! This will be a place for students to fall in love with books, to strengthen their reading skills and their vocabulary. The success of our students takes us all working together, and these dedicated partners have taken ownership and responsibility for that call. They've helped to support our goal of creating reading and readers through this opportunity of Patrick's Corner. I would especially like to thank our community partners for their help with this project. And at this time, I would like to introduce Michael Casa from the National Bank of Arizona.
On behalf of National Bank of Arizona, I'd like to express my excitement to be part of the Patrick Peterson Foundation for Success and its mission to provide low-income and inner-city youth with opportunities and resources to reach their full potential. Though his foundation is still young, Patrick has already been able to do some great things in the lives of Arizona youth, including his Pick Up a Book reading challenge and now his third Patrick's Corner. These initiatives are meant to make reading attractive to young students and to keep them engaged so that they may become lifelong readers and genuinely enjoy one of the most fundamental elements of success. Patrick has such a heart for helping these kids succeed because he knows firsthand what it is like to be there and how impactful a positive mentor can be when it comes to encouragement of education and literacy. At the end of this year, I will be beyond proud to be able to say that National Bank of Arizona helped put the Patrick Peterson Foundation for Success impact the lives of more than 30,000 Arizona at-risk youth. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Patrick Peterson.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you guys for allowing the Patrick Peterson Foundation to open up their third Patrick's Corner. So give yourself a round of applause for that. I want to thank the members of my board who's out, Rick, Michael, everyone's out. Give yourself a round of applause as well. Assistant Principal, Andrea, thank you as well for making this possible and seeing the vision that not only me but the Patrick Peterson Foundation have for these little angels, because I believe literacy is definitely the first key to success. So thank you as well. Patrick's, we're looking to open up at least 10 more Patrick's Corners. As you guys can see, just something that these kids can come in and utilize their time. It's something colorful, so it can be fun. It can pop to them, and they have all type of books here that they can come here and explore. I'm definitely excited to open up our third one. I love to see the joy on these little angels' face, not only when I walk in here, but to see my face up there. And you know, the new thing now is with the selfies and all that stuff. That's pretty cool, and it's a joy to see what attract these kids to come and want to learn. So I want you guys to definitely continue to put your head down and listen to your parents and get your literacy down pat, because that's definitely going to get you further than anything in this world. All right? But I mean, what a great day. I mean, couldn't pick a better school. So I hope you guys continue to succeed, not only today, but in your future as well. So thank you. Yeah, I got to pick someone to read with me. Oh, we got a ribbon cutting first. Okay.
Here we have 2 boys that are going to hold the ribbon for you.
All right. Where's the little ones at?
Hold it nice and straight, okay? Hold it straight.
You got it?
Come back with it. Want to hold it right here? Hold it really tight.
There you go. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Ryan.
Who wants to read with me? Oh, I got my man, the ribbon cutter. I'm going to take you as well. What's your name? Lonnie? And yours?
Brian.
Brian?
Brian.
Brian, nice to meet you, Brian.
My name's Jacob.
Nice to meet you,
My
Jacob.
last name is Casares.
Say it again.
Casares. And my nickname is JJ.
Nice to meet you, JJ.
That's my nickname.
I can't call you a nickname. Say it again, sweetie. Haley. Nice to meet you, Haley. All right, what's your name again? One more time. Eli. Oh, Laylan and Ryan. So So we got Leilani and Ryan. He's going to read I Like Myself. It's okay? Here we go. I'll let Leilani take the first one.
I like myself. I'm glad I am. There's no one else. I'll rather be. I like my eyes, my ears, my nose. I like my fingers and my toes. I like me wood.
Wow.
Loud. I like me time. I like me different and the same. I like my fast. I like me slow. I like me everywhere I go. I like me on the inside too, for all I think and say and do. Inside, outside, upside down, from head to toe and all around. I like it all. It all is me, and me is all I want to be. And I don't care in any way what someone else may think or say. I may be called a silly nut or crazy cuckoo bird, so what? I'm having too much fun, you see, for anything to bother me. Even when I look a mess, I still don't like me unless. 'Cause nothing in this would, you know, can change what's deep inside, and so. It still like me with please or with a silly snout that snorts. Or knobby knees, or hippo hips, or purple polka dot lips. Or before reader, or stinky toy, or horn, or John.
That's it. Give your classmates a round of applause.
Patrick, why don't you get a picture with all
Yeah, get a picture with you guys. You want to get in there, assistant principal?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
I will get in the middle.
So you guys want to stand up, boys and girls?
You want to stand up? Yeah.
Okay, stand up, you guys. You guys can focus on the glasses.
Oh, so what are you wearing?
Yeah, I just go to the eye doctor.
Oh yeah?
All right, guys.
So why you wear your glasses then?
Because.
Because what? To read them? To read?
No. You take them? Yeah.
Oh, sweetie.
They're just for school.
Okay. Make you look cooler?
Uh-huh.
You guys can everybody look up here for a second? Awesome, thanks guys.
What do we say, guys?
I'm going to sign you guys a picture here before I go. Get through here.
You love football?
Do I love football? Yeah, of course.
Oh, it's real easy.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, when he gives you your picture,
Gotta knock me out.
okay? This way when he gives you your picture, okay? Go this way, guys. Go this way, guys.
There you go, sweetie. I gotta get you one, JJ. There you go, JJ.
That's my nickname.
He called you your nickname, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome, bro. You're welcome.
I'm gonna do a selfie.
There you go. Thank you. No selfie today, I see. There you go, sweetie.
What do you say?
You're welcome. There you go. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Can we go?
Well, he wears regular clothes too.
No problem. I give you a couple to pass out to some good students.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Contest or whatever you want to do with it.
Okay.
20 minutes. This FOX10.
Thank you. It's about 7 of them.
Thank you so much. I
Other way,
appreciate it.
other way.
Everything. I'll catch you.
How you doing? No problem. You're welcome.
I have to bend it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This is Mom.
How you doing?
She told me to tell you hi. She's going to be here today.
Okay.
We're getting all the pictures. She said, I need to know what pictures we're going to get because she's going to try to put our
Okay. Cool.
Thanks for coming out.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah,
Okay.
I know. you favor her a little bit.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good. Thank you so much for what you're doing for us. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. You're welcome.
We've been waiting for you.
You're welcome.
We have a thank you poster for each. I'm not sure if other schools have got one for you too, but we have a thanks to there's thank you Patrick Peterson poster.
Oh, okay. Nice.
If you do, I'll take a picture of you.
Yeah, I know, I'm like,
Let me know.
all right. It was going to be here. I know it showed a question and answer. I mean, I don't know if he prefers to be at a podium. We can stay here and just close those doors. Otherwise, we have a conference room that's also ready.
How much we can ask these guys what. Are you guys sticking around for the question and answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if we can.
Are you okay doing it here? You want it? Okay.
We're easy.
That's good. I was going to persuade you.
Oh, that's nice of them.
Good.
Careful. All right. Set that down.
Alright. Are you gonna put this on?
Put it up there.
All I wanna do is ask about slips and stuff, so I can make a PSA.
Okay, I will get, once we get ready to go, we'll get it.
All right, it looks like that stream is all wrapped up. How's everybody doing today? Is having a great day. My name is Mike Page. Hope you guys are all having a fantastic Monday afternoon. We're going to go live out to the UN General Assembly and get that squared up for you.
These efforts give rise to conflicting emotions. Yes, there are certain shifts in reducing global levels of poverty, in increasing the level of protection, and improving the health of mothers and children, in ensuring access to education. But speaking about achievements, we also have to acknowledge that we did not have a qualitative breakthrough for the good of human civilization. Moreover, we see that the world today is being engulfed by new challenges, and then old problems are getting more acute. And these challenges and problems do not concern just one area, but rather all of the more important aspects of human activity. Firstly, today we're confronted with something that is absolutely new geopolitical phenomena in military conflicts, and this was mentioned by many an orator before me. What we are noticing is that the very high level of tension in international relations, in the unprecedented level, and threats are coming to the fore which cannot be reacted to. Focusing on minor disputes over secondary issues, the global communities overlook the emergence of aggressive terrorist states. The entire system of international security is undergoing a severe crisis. There's a loss of mutual trust between global players. There's an unwillingness to compromise and a return to a bloc-like confrontation have basically put the world on the verge of a new war. New efforts continue to impose a new development model on other countries. What does this lead to? As a result of foreign interference, export of color revolutions, and artificial regime change, countries which used to be stable beforehand have now been plunged into chaos and anarchy. And this is all given the gloss of democracy. Well, instead of the promised democracy and prosperity, people in these countries are living through extreme suffering and
We got the shot back, so we're going to go back
crowds of migrants are
to
besieging
Patrick
Europe
Peterson.
today. And this, too.
You sure?
We have a lot to focus on.
Well, Patrick, hey, it's always I know you're one of those individuals who loves to give back to the community, and I just want to know what it means to you today to come here today and open your third Patrick's Corner.
It means a lot to me, not only to me, but to my foundation as well, because we set out a goal at the beginning of the year, not only at the beginning of the year, but when we started the Patrick Peterson Foundation, our goal was to make sure we influence as many kids as we can, and by this being the third one of many here at Frank Elementary, it's a very exciting time. I'm definitely looking forward to opening up more Patrick's Corners around the valley.
Patrick, what does it mean to you? Because, you know, maybe one day in the grand scheme, when you open up a Patrick's Corner, you might make a difference in one young person's life and shape them for a better path.
You know, that's the goal, you know, to at least touch one of those 1,000 kids that I come out and see and shake their hands or read a book with. You know, those are stories that I definitely want to hear about down the road. You know, can't wait, because I know it's definitely going to be one success story, or if not more. You know, so but we understand that this is going to be a process, and we understand as well that it works. And literacy, I believe, is definitely far more important in anything, any sport, you know, any scaffold, you know, any other profession in this world. I think everything starts with reading and understanding what's going on in the world.
Now, what originally inspired you, Patrick, to start this special Patrick's Corner?
You know, I won't say I was brought up in a situation, but I grew up around it. You know, I seen kids, you know, when we had popcorn reading, you know, in fourth and fifth grade, and kids weren't able to read on the third to fifth grade level. You know, and I just go back to those times and what my mom did to make reading fun for us growing up. You know, doing like book reports every Friday. You know, she'll give us a book to go read for a month. You know, and give us ask us questions about it. Or what do we think about it? Who was the main character? You know, what page did I leave that $100 in? Because that's things like that just to make us interesting in reading. So, and I want to push that the way I learned how to read. I want to push that out to other kids as well, because seeing the stats and seeing some of the things some of these kids go through and being embarrassed and not able to read, I think that's definitely hurtful. So I think every kid in this world should have the opportunity to go out and succeed their full potential.
Patrick, what does it mean to you when you have a group of kids and you're reading to them, and obviously they're looking at you not just as this great person who's giving back, but also basically you're a star to a lot of kids, to a lot of people in this room.
Right, and you know, and that's another reason why I want to be able to do this as well, because kids listen to me. You know, some kids. I mean, I have one on the way as my for myself, but I'm the oldest of 5. I know how we can be, because I'm still a child in my parents' eyes as well. We can be hard-headed, and we rather listen to an outside source than the parent. You know, so I feel that the platform that I am on today is definitely key to making my voice very hurtful to these kids and helping them see the importance of literacy.
Now, of course, everyone's here wants to talk a little football about this team, and obviously, last I checked, it's going pretty well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the 3-0 start, 40-plus points a game, 4 picks yesterday, 2 pick sixes. I can keep going on, but
right.
Just to say the team's playing pretty well right now.
You know, it's still early. You know, we just want to continue doing the things that got us here. You know, just respecting the process, grinding it out each and every day, leading up to the game on Sundays. And, you know, just taking it a week at a time. We understand what it takes to win, and we know if we're close in the fourth quarter and we're playing home, we're going to have a chance to win because of the crowd, just the next level the stadium kicks it to. We know we're going to have an opportunity to win it. But we're definitely having a lot of success, a lot of team success, because defense, offense, special teams, everyone's clicking right now. If we can keep that going, keep Carson healthy, keep the team healthy as well, I believe we can be pretty dangerous.
Patrick, I know it's only 3 weeks in, but obviously, would you say this is one of the most talented Arizona Cardinals team you've been on since you've been here? And to further that up, would it be disappointing in the grand scheme, when it's all said and done, if you guys aren't playing in Levi Stadium in Super Bowl 15?
I mean, it's always disappointing when you don't have an opportunity to play for the big one, you know. So this year is not any different. But as far as the most talent this Arizona Cardinals roster has had since I've been around here, no question, no doubt about it, from top to bottom. We have guys, we have playmakers at every position, and not only that, we have backups that can come in and fulfill those guys' roles as well. So, but that doesn't mean anything if we don't go out there and do what we need to do, as far as making sure our eyes are in the right place, making sure we're on our keys, and make sure we're coming out with the W. Because, you know, we can have all the talent in the world, but if we're not hosting a trophy at the end of the year, technically we didn't do anything. So that's our goal, and hopefully we can continue to tallying up enough wins and get to the playoffs and hopefully get the NFC Championship here and march on to Levi Stadium.
One last thing for me. I got to talk a little bit about your alma mater. Playing pretty well as well. Last I checked, you have a pretty good running back. Pretty good as well.
Yeah, he's talking about now the
Do
game.
you like him potentially winning the Heisman, or the chances of the Tigers winning the national title this year?
Very early season for those guys as well, but he's running
This deserves 200 views, not
like a freight train right now. You know, he looks very, very good, and we still have to get in the meat of the schedule. We still got Alabama, we still got Texas A&M, still
what's
got
that?
Ole Miss, who's going to play us tough.
Oh, still that.
We still got Arkansas. You know, we still have a good schedule ahead of us, so we have to make sure that those guys have to make sure they continue doing the things what got them there as well, and what's helping them be successful. You want to make sure that you don't lose sight of those things and the little things as well. But they have a pretty good shot of going all the way. A lot of guys are picking them to go all the way. I know I'm always going to ride with them to go all the way. So it'll definitely be disappointing as well. But you know, I know those guys are definitely putting their heart out each and every Saturday. They go out there and fight for Les Mountain and for the name on their back, and for LSU as well. So I wish those guys the best of luck, and we'll see what happens at the end of the season.
Shifting gears a little bit.
Okay.
You're the selfie king.
Yep.
But somebody has beaten you in Indies.
Oh, the guy ended up doing it.
Yes. How do you feel about something like that?
First of all, he quit his job.
And you still have a job.
Exactly. So I didn't think it was that serious, but I did hear that the guy was quitting his job to attempt to break my my Guinness World Record, and I was hoping someone did. Actually, I think I just made it in the book, because I think they just printed a book like September 23rd.
Well, according to my desk, they were saying that his name is in there.
Ah, that sucks. That sucks. Is my name in there as well or no?
No, I don't know.
Oh, now I'm hurt. Now I'm hurt. But
Sorry.
yeah, but
Are you gonna try to?
probably not.
Probably.
Yeah, probably not. It was fun for the moment.
You also said that you have other members of your family.
Nice.
I do. Have Brian McFadden, who was a two-time Super Bowl champion.
We're always thinking ahead.
Walter McFadden, he played for Oakland Raiders and Pittsburgh Steelers.
Slowly.
No, those, I'm the youngest of the guys who play in football, but I'm the oldest of my 5 siblings. Yeah.
So Patrick, there's definitely some, because they got the rock. They've got the bling from winning Super Bowls. So do they kid you a little bit, saying, "Look, you got to bring something home"?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in year 5, so I'm planning on playing this game for a very long time, or until my body tells me I can't go anymore. So I think I have a pretty good opportunity of at least bringing one home.
I hope that's occurred.
I hope so too.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Patrick, as always, thank you for your professionalism.
No problem.
It's always good
Thank
to
you,
see
man. Thanks.
Dave's coming.
Nice to meet you, Dave.
Go Cardinals.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Thinking about our national experience, I can reach the following conclusion, and it is that only an alliance of strong, responsible, and effective states united by the system of international law can adequately respond to modern global threats and challenges. And here, in this regard, the role of the United Nations is crucial. These days, we hear a lot of criticism about the UN, and the Republic of Belarus, of course, shares the key idea that the United Nations should keep abreast of the times. But the important thing here is that as we reform, let's make sure that we do not throw out the main thing, namely that we need to keep intact the principles and goals of the UN Charter. It's important also to understand that the UN, as I said on many an occasion, is all of us. And depending on how coordinated and constructive we will be, that will determine the well-being of the world community. Mr. President, I certainly do not want to sound once again as a prophet here on the second day of our work, but we cannot escape the feeling that what we're witnessing in the world is a specter of a new massive war. We must not allow this sinister vision to turn into reality. Yesterday, we discussed very important issues, the program for the future of the United Nations, which is very important. But when we're talking about mentioning sustainable people to many people, to millions of people, this sounds as a sacrilege because they are dying. Children and the old people are dying. What we need to do is come together and pass one decision only, put an end to all wars and conflicts, to all of those which have erupted and are ravaging our planet. To conclude, I would like to quote an eminent personality, Nelson Mandela. This unbroken fighter for justice in the world once said, "Sometimes it falls on a generation to be great." You can be that generation. I hope very much that such a destiny will indeed befall our generation. I'm confident that we will find strength and common sense to do whatever it takes to change the world for the better. That's the only option we have. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Belarus for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the President. The Assembly will now hear an address by His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
President of the General Assembly, Your Excellencies, heads of state and governments, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I would like, Mr. President, on behalf of the government and people of Nigeria, to congratulate you and your country on your election to preside over the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly. May I also express appreciation to your predecessor, Mr. Sam Kahamba Kutesa, and the Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, both of whom worked tirelessly to ensure proper articulation of the post-2015 development agenda and to maintain the focus and commitment to the ideals of the United Nations. I thank Mr. Ban Ki-moon for his recent visit to Nigeria when we held very useful discussions. Mr. President, 55 years ago, almost to the day, my predecessor, Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, stood on this forum to declare Nigeria's desire to develop and maintain friendly relations with all countries. He also assured the world of our country's commitment to uphold the principles upon which the United Nations was founded. Mr. President, my country, Nigeria, has lived by this conviction, even when judgment went against us in territorial disputes with our neighbors. We respected those judgments and abided by them as a mark of respect for the rule of law and the charter of this organization. Nigeria's record in the United Nations peacekeeping is second to none. I myself, as a young officer in the Nigerian Army, did tours of duty in Congo and the Lebanon. Nigeria contributed to United Nations peacekeeping efforts in Ethiopia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Darfur. Furthermore, we are proud of our contributions to other activities of the United Nations, including Peace Building Commission, the Human Rights Council, and security sector reform. Mr. President, we are gratified to note that most countries have pledged commitment to the post-2015 development agenda and sustainable development goals with their means of implementation. The successor frameworks of the MDGs have come, Mr. President, with lofty aspirations and, if I may say so, heroic assumptions. Nonetheless, they target development cooperation by the international community up to their 2020, and they deserve universal support. This is because the SDGs mirror the hopes and aspirations of much of the world. I should stress that for the newly adopted SDGs to be truly global, they must be practical. In this regard, the SDGs' core objectives of poverty eradication and reducing inequalities must be met within the framework of a revitalized global partnership support by concrete policies and actions as outlined in the Addis Ababa agenda. Luckily, these two core objectives of SDGs are precisely at the center of Nigeria's new administration's agenda. It must be emphasized, Mr. President, that foreign direct investment supplemented, where suitable, by official development assistance, as outlined in the Addis Ababa agenda, are necessary, though not sufficient, conditions for accelerated development in countries that are trying to catch up. In this connection, I would like to appeal to industrialized countries to redeem their pledge of 0.7% GDP to development assistance, with the sole exception of the United Kingdom. All concerned countries have, I am told, to meet the United Nations requirement. But, Mr. President, with SDGs, we have the opportunity to improve the lives of people, not just in the developing world, but in all nations. The Secretary General himself has grouped the SDGs into what he calls 6 essential elements: namely, dignity, prosperity, justice, partnership, planet, people. As a prerequisite to this, and as we look at history and remember the terrible events that gave rise to the birth of the United Nations in 1945, I would like to propose a 7th: peace. Peace, Mr. President, is close to the hearts of Nigerians, as we are in the front line in the war on terror. Boko Haram's war against the people of Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon may not attract as much worldwide attention as the wars in the Middle East, but the suffering is just as great and the human cost is equally high. This is a war about values, between progress and chaos, between democracy and the rule of law. Boko Haram celebrates violence against the weak and the innocent, and deplorably, they hide behind their perverted interpretation of Islam. Boko Haram is as far away from Islam as anyone can think of. Many of my colleagues attending this forum would want to know how our new government intends to tackle the huge problem the government has inherited. Friends of Nigeria and foreign investor partners will be encouraged to know that the new government is attacking the problems we inherited head-on. We intend to tackle inequalities arising from massive unemployment and previous government policies favoring a few people to the detriment of the many. We intend to emphasize quality technological education for development and lay foundation for comprehensive care of the aged, the disadvantaged, and the infirm. But for now, terrorism is the immediate problem. Accordingly, Mr. President, members of the General Assembly, the new Nigerian government, which I have the honor to head, moved with dispatch to put in a bold and robust strategy to defeat Boko Haram. Nigeria and her neighbors, Cameroon, Chad, Niger plus Benin, are working together to face this common threat within the regional framework of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. We have established a multinational joint task force to confront, degrade, and defeat Boko Haram. We have driven them away from many of their strongholds, killed or captured many of their operatives or commanders, and freed several hundred of hostages. Mr. President, one of our major aims is to rescue the Chibok girls alive and unharmed. We are working around the clock to ensure their safety and eventual reunion with their families. Chibok girls are constantly on our minds and in our plans. Mr. President, terrorism is by no means the major or the only evil threatening and undermining the well-being of societies around the world. Corruption, cross-border financial crimes, cyber crimes, human trafficking, spread of communicable diseases, climate change, proliferation of weapons are all major challenges of the 21st century, which the international community must tackle collectively. Let me reaffirm Nigerian government's unwavering commitment to fight corruption and illicit financial flows. By any consideration, corruption and cross-border financial crimes are impediments to development, economic growth, and the realization of well-being of citizens across the globe. Nigeria is ready and willing to partner with international agencies and individual countries on a bilateral basis to confront crimes and corruption. In particular, I call upon the global community to urgently redouble efforts towards strengthening the mechanism for dismantling safe havens for proceeds of corruption and ensuring the return of stolen funds and assets to their countries of origin. Mr. President, the world is now facing a big new challenge: human trafficking. This is an old evil taking an altogether new and dangerous dimension, threatening to upset international relationships. We in Africa are grieved to see on international networks how hundreds of thousands of our able-bodied men and women fleeing to Europe, and in the process thousands dying in the desert or drowning in the Mediterranean. We condemn in the strongest terms these people traffickers and will support any measures to apprehend and bring them to justice. At the same time, we are very appreciative of European governments, notably Italy and Germany, for their understanding and humane treatment of these refugees. Last year, our continent faced the dreadful occurrence of Ebola. We sincerely thank the international community for the collective efforts to contain this deadly disease. We are not out of the woods yet, but we would like to record our appreciation to the United States, United Kingdom, France, and China for their outstanding assistance in arresting the spread of Ebola and care of those infected in collaboration with host countries. Mr. President, Nigeria fully subscribes to and fully endorses goals 13, 14, and 15 of the SDGs regarding climate change. In Nigeria, desertification and land erosion and degradation leading to biodiversity loss are real threats to our environment, and we shall propose, under the auspices of the Lake Chad Basin Commission, a regional approach to combat these environmental challenges. We look forward to the United Nations Summit on Climate Change in Paris in December 2015. This summit should provide optimism to humanity on addressing the looming threat faced by many communities around the world. Mr. President, we are witnessing a dreadful increase in conflicts fueled by availability of small arms and light weapons. I call upon all member countries to demonstrate the political will needed to uphold the United Nations Charter. For a start, a robust implementation of the Arms Trade Treaty will guarantee that small arms and light weapons are only legally transferred. Arms traffickers and human traffickers are two evil species which the world community should eradicate. As we engage in these annual debates, we need to remind ourselves of the principles that led to the founding of the United Nations. Among those are peaceful coexistence and self-determination of peoples. In this context, Mr. President, the unresolved question of self-determination for the Palestinian people and those of Western Sahara, both nations having been adjudged by the United Nations as qualifying for this inalienable right, must now be assured and fulfilled without any further delay or obstacle. The international community has come to pin its hopes on resolving the Palestinian issue through the two-state solution, which recognizes the legitimate right of each state to exist in peace and security. The world has no more excuses or reasons to delay the implementation of the long list of Security Council resolutions on this question. Neither do we have the moral right to deny any people their freedom or condemn them indefinitely to occupation and blockade. Mr. President, delegates of member countries, United Nations is 70 years old. It can count many more than 70 major of achievements. As the World Forum and Family Reunion, it is my hope that in the next 70 years, it will achieve control of climate, help to eliminate communicable diseases, eliminate major and local conflicts, and therefore eliminate the problem of refugees, take major steps towards reducing harmful inequalities between nations and within nations, and above all, eliminate nuclear weapons. Mr. President, as this is my first address in this assembly, I thank you and the delegates for listening so patiently. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the President. The President of Nigeria is an example to follow because he spoke for exactly 15 minutes. Exactly 15 minutes. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Ali Bongo Ondimba, President of the Gabonese Republic. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Ali Bongo Ondimba, President of the Gabonese Republic, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, heads of state and government, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, this session is taking place at a time when humanity is facing numerous challenges, one more difficult than the other, and they are migration crises, humanitarian crises, deadly conflicts, terrorism, economic crisis, climate change, and pandemics. It is obvious that 70 years after the establishment of the United Nations, we are increasingly aware of the dangers of these situations, both for us and the future generations. And this explains our presence and our activity here and elsewhere. And our people are pinning their hopes and aspirations on the United Nations more than ever before. More than ever before, our organization is a unique forum which is universal of nature. Mr. President, the topic of this session provides us with an opportunity to take a look on the functioning of our organization. It also provides us with an opportunity to formulate forecasts, define new prospects for our activity and future, whilst basing ourselves on the main pillars of our agenda, namely peace, security, and human rights. It is now time to acknowledge the solid nature of the United Nations and its leadership expressed through constant activity of its member states in the management of international affairs. We have together organized the fight against poverty, major illnesses such as HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and we are now conquering Ebola. Together, we have fought for the rights of the vulnerable groups such as the handicapped, the elderly, the indigenous people, the women, and the children, including in that number the widows and the orphans. Let me underscore in passing that the General Assembly adopted in 2010, at the initiative of Gabon, a resolution which established the International Day of the Widow. Together, we have mobilized ourselves to meet humanitarian emergencies, and global warming and other cross-border scourges. Together, we continue working in order to provide an effective answer to a number of security challenges stemming from terrorism and other cross-border threats. Together, we have moved forward international criminal justice in order to be more efficient in fighting impunity. Together, we have also developed a dialogue amongst cultures and civilizations, strengthened relations amongst people of the world, and lowered identity barriers. Mr. President, above and beyond our many efforts, peace and international security continue, unfortunately, to be threatened as we witness the appearance of new kinds of challenges. The United Nations has to restructure itself in order to adapt to new international realities. New threats appear, in particular terrorism, but also maritime piracy, all kinds of trafficking, smuggling, and they ask for new kind of responses. My country welcomes the fact that the Security Council takes into account these new challenges. Gabon, when we were in Security Council in 2010-2011, we contribute towards the adoption of the Council of a historic resolution having to do with the impact on HIV epidemics on international peace and security. In the same vein, I would like to mention also the presidential statement made by the Security Council, which on the topic on the circulation of small arms and light weapons in Central Africa. In the same register, at the initiative of Gabon and Germany, the General Assembly on the 30th of July 2015 adopted a resolution which had to do with illegal trafficking in wildlife. And I am very happy to see a great number of co-sponsors which demonstrated a high level of support. This resolution also expresses our will to pool our efforts of the countries of origin, transit, and destination in order to end this phenomenon. I remain convinced that it is through cooperation that we will become more effective. We would like to encourage the United Nations, in particular the Security Council, to continue its efforts in dealing with these threats in order to provide comprehensive responses which are best adapted to current security challenges. Mr. President, in Africa, several crises continue despite the efforts made by the Security Council, African Union, and sub-regional organizations. In Central African Republic in particular, despite advances made this year, the situation remains fragile and worrying. The recent events show that the stability of the country absolutely has to be consolidated, and we have to redouble our efforts in order to ensure that we move towards transition. I would like to invite the stakeholders to exercise greater restraint and to to become involved in the dialogue in order not to undermine the efforts already made. International community has to become greater mobilized in order to help the Central African Republic in order to hold elections by the end of the year. Through these elections, they will be able to put an end to a troubled period of their history. In the Middle East, the situation between Israel and Palestine remains a source of concern. Here, the international community also has become greater involved for the purpose of resuming peace negotiations, resolving such similarly complex situations in other regions of the world means that there is no difficulty which cannot be overcome. Creating the state of the Palestine remains the only possible prospect if we want to guarantee peace in the sub-region. We have to work together in order to ensure that the state of Palestine and Israel can coexist in peace and mutual acceptance. I'm very happy to welcome the positive development this year in the relationship between Cuba and the United States of America in the wake of the normalization agreement and the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. I would like to hope that this development will result very soon in the lifting of the embargo against Cuba. Mr. President, the burning question of the permanent threat that we have because of the excessive accumulation of weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear weapons, can only be resolved through multilateral mechanisms such as a conference on nuclear disarmament. We are committed in favor of an international non-proliferation system as consecrated in relevant instruments such as the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And that is why I welcome the recent agreement between the international community and the Islamic Republic of Iran as regards their nuclear program. Mr. President, the threat of terrorism continues increasing throughout the world. And besides the Middle East, Africa has become a new area where numerous terrorist groupings multiply. In Western and Central Africa, Boko Haram is spreading terror. In Eastern Africa, and particularly in Somalia, Al-Shabaab continues committing atrocities and continues challenging AMISOM. In order to be more effective, the fight against terrorism has to necessarily be strengthened through international cooperation. We need to pool our efforts as we face this scourge. And in this sense, I think it would be beneficial for us to monitor the financial flows which feed this phenomenon. My country reaffirms its solidarity with all of the initiatives aiming at combating international terrorism in all of its forms. Mr. President, significant and undeniable progress has been achieved in the area of human rights throughout the world. Thanks to the assistance extended by the United Nations, political systems have become open. Institutions guaranteeing equality and justice for all have been put together. At the request of its members, the United Nations reformed the Human Rights Commission. It had been transformed and became the Human Rights Council. The goal here was to make this body more proactive, less politicized, and especially more efficient. And I welcome I'm happy to announce that my country participated in this. In your support to my country's chairmanship of the Human Rights Council has enabled us to move closer towards the implementation of the objectives that we pursued through the reform. And I'm happy to see that, and I would like to thank you all very much for your support. For my country, improving the human rights is something that we need to be looking at as a pedagogical rather than political phenomenon. The United Nations has to continue permanent dialogue with member states in order to help them overcome challenges in the area of human rights. And confrontation in this area does not seem to me to be a constructive thing. Mr. President, keeping and consolidating peace is something that has to be done through the reform of the Security Council of the United Nations. This ambition also calls for the reform in the peacekeeping operations themselves. We reaffirm our support to the democratization of the Security Council in order to bring all the regions into the development and the implementation of its decisions. It is in this regard part that we reiterate our full endorsement of the African position expressed through the Azulwini Consensus, the Search Declaration, and the intergovernmental negotiations underway on this issue. This is now the right moment to translate this will for reform, which has been accepted and wanted by all, into act. The question of the use of the veto is part and parcel of the reform process of the Security Council, and we support the initiative launched by France and Mexico on the rational use of the veto by the permanent members of the Security Council. For several years now, peacekeeping operations, the secular hand of the Council, have been undergoing restructuring, and I welcome the recommendations which came out of the Special Committee on Peacekeeping operations. And I am talking specifically about the recommendations on the use of new technologies, improving communication between the local populations and the mission personnel on the one hand, and between the Secretariat and the contributing countries on the other hand. I also support the fact that the sustainable development during the post-conflict phase was taken into account. Furthermore, and in order to be more effective, the peacekeeping missions have to be provided with predictable financing and clear mandate with limited duration in order to make sure that they don't become unduly long. In certain circumstances, the mandate have to become more robust, especially when there is no alternative to the need to impose peace. And in this case, and basing ourselves on Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter, we should be able to provide PKOs with a mandate authorizing the military to use force in order to impose peace. We should be able, in a position, to provide the PKOs with a mandate to create the conditions for peace, rather than maintain fragile peace framed by a ceasefire agreement. Mr. President, revitalizing the deliberations of the General Assembly is another aspect of the reform of the United Nations wished for by the majority of member states. I welcome the resolution passed on the 11th of September by the General Assembly on this. I am convinced that this resolution will strengthen the authority of the General Assembly, which is the most representative body of the United Nations. Mr. President, climate change, another new challenge to peace and international security, is impacting our ecosystems increasingly and the very survival of the planet as well. If we do not act today, the consequences will be devastating, and there will be floods, droughts, and peace undermined in certain cases. My country takes note of certain progress which came out of the negotiating process in Bonn. Nonetheless, I would like to say that 2 months away from the conference in Paris, our negotiations are still very far from having a pre-agreement, which we are waiting for in order to truly start the deliberations of COP21. The situation is serious, and that means that we, leaders of the world, have to have courage in order to overcome our difficulties and to do everything we can in order to have an agreement in Paris, because the situation as regards climate it otherwise will get worse. The experts are telling us that year 2014 is the warmest one we've ever had, and the temperature increase can be 4, 5, or 6 degrees if we do nothing today. It is therefore time for us to shoulder our responsibilities and to make the right decisions to make sure that our respective peoples are expecting from us. And this is something that will impact the very survival of the planet and what we bequeath to future generations. Africa and South America are the two lungs of the planet, and we have a fundamental role to play in these negotiations. And that's why I launch an appeal for constant dialogue amongst heads of state and governments in these two axes during the negotiations in Paris. It's common knowledge to say that climate change is closely linked to the migration crisis. Fighting climate change will, of course, enable us to reduce the level of extreme poverty. And the solutions here have to include the development of the energy and water sector, but also they have to include greater investment of governments in such areas as education and professional training. Africa needs electricity and water. Africa also needs to create jobs in order to improve the standard of living of our people. Providing answers to climate change challenge in terms of developing a new economic model is something that will enable us to encourage people to stay in their respective countries. It's important, therefore, that the international community mobilize itself in order to establish adaptation and mitigation mechanisms. Since the Copenhagen conference, Gabon, through me, has been continuously calling for the adoption of a universal and binding agreement on climate change. The Paris conference in December ought to enable us to reach this objective, this vital objective. But in order to get there, we need to make sure that we do not commit the mistakes made in Copenhagen. The crucial character of this conference is such that we cannot possibly postpone it until next year, because what's at question is the survival of humankind. If we postpone it, it will be too late. Mr. President, and I'm concluding, during the course of recent decades, the world has been changing at a high pace. And this evolution, unfortunately, provides a high contrast with the rigidity of concepts, institutions, the rules and practices of global governance. A new architecture with a legitimacy based on the participation of one and all in the management of affairs of the world is necessary. The United Nations has to become fully committed to the process of reform if the organization wants to continue play a strategic and diplomatic role of the first order throughout the world. Democracy has become our cardinal value, and therefore our world cannot continue being organized on the basis of the principle of the balance of power. An international system based on power, whether it's balanced or concentrated, has the disadvantage of promoting hierarchy and marginalization of small states and inequality. On the contrary, multilateralism, of which the United Nations is a guarantor, favors collective security and inclusiveness rather than selection. 70 years after the establishment of the United Nations, an increasing number of its member states shows in itself that the world definitely has opted for multilateralism. Such an architecture means that we need an innovative political project based on the principles of equality, inclusion, indivisibility, and reciprocity. This is a #1 goal of the United Nations, and may the Almighty help us reach this outcome. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Gabonese Republic for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the President. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Horacio Manuel Cartes Yara, President of the Republic of Paraguay. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Horacio Manuel Cartes Yara, President of the Republic of Paraguay, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Señor Presidente,
Mr. President,
señoras y señores jefes de Estado,
heads of
y
state
jefes de gobierno,
and government,
señores delegados,
distinguished
hace
delegates,
70 años
70
sobre
years
las ruinas
ago,
humeantes
on the
de la
ruins
Segunda Guerra
of the
Mundial,
Second World
nació la
War,
Organización de las
the
Naciones
United
Unidas,
Nations was
con el
born
propósito
with
de
the
mantener
purpose
la
of
paz y la
maintaining
seguridad internacionales
world peace and
y
security
promover
and promoting
la cooperación
cooperation
entre todas las naciones
between
del
all
mundo.
nations across
La
the
República
globe.
del Paraguay
The Republic
es
of
uno de los
Paraguay
51
was one of the
estados
51
que suscribieron
states
el
that
acta fundacional
signed
que se ha convertido
the
en una
founding
contribución
act,
histórica
the UN
a la
Charter, which has
comunidad
become a historic contribution
internacional.
to the international community.
Para el Paraguay, el
For
derecho a la igualdad
Paraguay, the right
y el
to
respeto a la
equality
soberanía
and
entre los
respect
estados,
for sovereignty among
tanto
states,
grandes como
both
pequeños,
large and small,
justifica la
justifies
razonable expectativa
our
en la plena
hoping for the
consolidación
full
de esta
consolidation of this organization.
Señor Presidente,
Mr.
formulo mis
President,
mejores augurios
I
por el
express
éxito
my
de su
best
desempeño
wishes for
al
the
frente
success
de
in your
este
performance
70º
at the
periodo
outset of
de la
this,
Asamblea
the
General de
70th
las
session
Naciones
of the
Unidas.
United Nations General
Con
Assembly.
singular aprecio, saludo al señor
As
secretario
well,
general
I'd like
Ban
to
Ki-moon,
express
a quien
my
tuvimos
satisfaction
el
at
honor
the
de
work
recibir
of
en febrero
Mr. Ban
de este
Ki-moon,
año
whom we
en mi
welcomed
país.
in my country in
Su
February
visita
this year.
afianzó aún
His
más
visit
los vínculos y el compromiso
assured once
con la
again the
organización
strong links
y el
and the commitment
multilateralismo.
with the organization, multilateralism.
Para reiterar
And
al
I
señor
take
secretario
this
general
opportunity
mi
to
gratitud
reiterate
por sus
to the Secretary
ponderaciones
General
hacia
my
el trabajo
gratitude for
y los
recognizing the
resultados
work and the
de la
results
lucha de nuestro
of
gobierno
our
contra la
government's
pobreza,
fight against
así
poverty,
como por sus referencias
as well
elogiosas
as
a la
his
energía
appreciation
limpia, abundante y
for the
renovable
abundant and
con que
renewable clean
felizmente
energy
cuenta el Paraguay.
that Paraguay is
Señor
blessed
Presidente,
with.
el fortalecimiento
Mr. President,
de
the
esta
strengthening of this
debe
organization
apuntar
should
concretamente
aim
a la
specifically
construcción de
at
un mundo
the
verdaderamente
construction
justo,
of a truly
solidario
fair
y con rostro
world, one
de
of
dignidad
solidarity
humana
with
a
the face
escala
of human
universal.
dignity at a universal scale.
Esto supone la superación
This
de las
entails
inequidades
overcoming
y las
inequities
desigualdades
and
que
inequalities
empobrecen todavía
that
el
still
orden mundial,
overshadow the
que
world
será realidad
order,
en la medida que se
which will
logre
be a reality
vigencia
as long as
efectiva
the
del
effective
derecho
enforcement of
internacional y la
international law is
conversión del sueño
achieved,
de una
and the
era
dream of a
pacífica y
peaceful
de bienestar
era and one
compartido
of well-being
entre todas
shared
nuestras
among
naciones.
all our nations is fulfilled.
En cuanto al Paraguay,
With regards
el objetivo
to
principal de nuestro gobierno
Paraguay, the main
es la
objective of our
reducción de la
government is
pobreza
to reduce
a corto
poverty
plazo, en
in
el
the short
contexto
term
de una política de
through
Estado
public
de erradicación de
policies
la misma.
to eradicate
Por eso,
poverty.
mantenemos y
Therefore, we
aumentamos
maintain
el
and
alcance
are
de los
increasing the
programas
scope
sociales,
of assistance
focalizados
programs,
especialmente
especially
en la pobreza
those
extrema
focusing on
y a
extreme
través de
poverty
las ayudas
and
condicionadas.
through tied aid.
La generación de oportunidades,
The
el
generation
empleo,
of
la
opportunities,
vivienda digna,
employment,
el
decent
respeto,
housing,
la equidad y el
respect,
acceso a la
equity,
educación,
and access
la
to
salud,
education,
y servicios
health,
básicos
and
de calidad
high-quality
constituyen
basic
el
public
arsenal
services
de nuestro
constitutes
combate
the
sin
arsenal
tregua
of our
para
tireless
erradicar
struggle
la pobreza
to
extrema
eradicate
de
extreme
nuestra
poverty
patria.
in our country.
Estos programas
These
brindan
programs
soluciones
provide
integrales
comprehensive
y permanentes
and permanent
para que las
solutions
personas
to enable
puedan generar
people to
capacidades de
become
autonomía y se
autonomous
desarrollen
and
plenamente.
self-fulfilled.
Buscamos el crecimiento económico
We
inclusivo
strive for an
de nuestro
inclusive
país,
economic
para
growth
que
in
el
our
progreso
country so that
llegue
progress
a todos
reaches
los
all
paraguayos.
Paraguayans.
Nos anima que el Paraguay sea uno de los países
We are
con
encouraged
más
by the
alto
fact that
crecimiento
Paraguay is one
económico
of the
de la
countries
región,
with the highest economic
lo cual
growths in the
se ha
region,
conseguido
which
mediante
has
una
been
férrea
achieved
disciplina
by
fiscal y mejorando la capacidad
improving our
productiva
production
y la
capacity and
competitividad.
through fiscal discipline
Al
and
valor
through
agregado de nuestras
competitiveness.
materias primas, que exige inversiones
The
nacionales
value added of
e
our raw materials,
internacionales,
which requires domestic and
estamos sumando
international investments,
geométricamente
are
en la industria de la
exponentially
construcción,
adding in
está
to the
modificando
construction industry,
rápidamente
which
el
is
perfil
rapidly
de
changing
nuestras ciudades.
the very profile
De
of our
igual manera,
cities.
apuntamos
Similarly, We aim to expand and modernize the infrastructure works with the conviction that by transforming the country, we are reducing poverty. And we continuously maintain the importance of our youth in our country. Paraguay is a young country with 75% of our population being below 40 years old, and this represents a valuable human capital. I welcome the enthusiasm of young people, particularly Paraguayan students who, the past couple of days, united their voices in the pursuit of transparency within public administration and through quality education. We trust in the immense...
All right, everybody, we are going to dip out of that as it is coming up on 5 o'clock. I'll be back at 6:30 for a very, very amazing Fox 10 News Now edition coming up at 6:30. Big show. We got a lot to talk about, including the Cardinals' big win, and then also this big accident that happened on 43rd Avenue earlier today near the I-10. We'll have all the details and a major update with that. So I will see you guys all at 6:30. Plus, it will be a birthday celebration for me as well. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you at 6:30 for a big one.